think we're live. Hopefully
Yay.
this works.
Mm-hmm.
So, hi. So, I'm Debbie, and this is Crystal,
I'm Crystal. Hello.
and we are both grief therapists who specialize in grief and have grief-informed and grief-centered practices.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we really want to get on and talk about and encourage other therapists to help support you if you are if you have a practice that really focuses on grief and trauma, because you can't do trauma without grief. Yeah. And so we met in just at the cusp of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. On
Yeah.
Facebook. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right.
On Facebook.
That's
Shout
right.
out to Meta before it was Meta, I think.
Yeah. You want to tell them about your sibling podcast?
Yes, most definitely. So I started out in adding a lot of therapists on my social media and on Facebook, and was just adding a lot of people. Debbie was one of the first ones that I had added, and nobody thought I was spam back there with just a new page and all of that. So I'm pretty excited that people didn't think I was a spam person. It's actual person, the new page. So I started that page, LPC Chris page, in 2019 because I had a podcast. I had two podcasts. I had the Get Naked Therapist podcast that I was just talking about therapy and all the ins and outs of therapy over the years. And Debbie was a part of that. She was a part of that. But my other podcast was Surviving Sibling Loss, the Forgotten Mourners podcast. And it was audio only at the time. And yeah.
Right. Keep going. I was just checking to make sure that we were on. We're on.
Okay, perfect.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So Debbie was one of, I believe you were my first guest. I believe you really were my first guest. I had my little MacBook, old 2011 version MacBook. It was heavy. And then I was on GarageBand. And then I had my phone trying to record all the things. So it came out early podcasting years. And did my best. But she did such an amazing job. And to know that she was all the way in Calabasas, California, and having this conversation with her, sitting on the floor in my house in Nashville, Tennessee, was just amazing. And then we found out this was before I was in private practice. I was working for at the time. And we were having a conversation about that Debbie, too, is not only a therapist and specializes in grief, but she's also a surviving sibling. Yep. And I was like, my goodness, the odds of this, meeting someone who's not only a therapist, but also a surviving sibling that's clear across the United States for me was like, it felt synergy.
And I think
I felt the synergy of it all.
I think our brothers actually died from cancer the same year. In 96.
Yeah. Yours was 96 and mine was 97, early 97. So yeah, and that's why I was like, but he was sick in 96. So it was like the whoa. Yeah. Whoa. You hear about social media and all the things, but you don't hear the stories that social media bringing people together. Yeah. And so she was on the podcast, and it was just a really good conversation. And from there, we have continued to have conversations. And now I am in private practice and group practice, and the owner of the Grief Center. So Debbie has really helped with language. She has helped with just knowing that I can call or email, text message her periodically just to pick her brain, and we can do collaborations and things of that nature. I use in my trainings, I use her phrase grief tsunami a lot, and I'll put a little picture of somebody standing at the edge of the beach in a tsunami wave, and I'll put little Debbie's name under there, and I'll say a colleague and friend and surviving sibling of mine, Debbie, in Calabasas, California, talks about the grief tsunami.
Yep.
Mhm,
Yep. Is that,
mhm.
you know, I grief, you know, we call them kind of grief attacks. They just feel like a tsunami because tsunamis are created by when the tutorial, you know, the plates, tectonic plates,
Yeah.
shift underneath our feet, you know,
Mhm.
and that I think that, you know, when somebody gets, you know, all of a sudden overwhelmed with their grief, it can often feel like it comes out of nowhere and can just overwhelm us.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm. Exactly, and people whenever I say that word, people are like, "Ah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah."
yeah.
So, I appreciate her for that, for giving me that language and that depiction to be spread across, wherever she's not, it can be spread across wherever I am.
Mhm.
So, that is how our relation we did meet in person. We met in
We did.
person,
Yep. In
what
Memphis.
was that, 3 years
In Memphis.
ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago when you came to Nashville for a conference,
Yeah.
and it was really cool. We were able to
You came
eat out.
by, picked me up. We went out for dinner.
Mhm, take a couple
Yeah.
pictures, and Dee was there. So, we did get to meet. It's always fun to meet a fellow therapist and a surviving sibling, so
Exactly.
that was awesome. Mhm.
Exactly. So
Yep.
we wanted to talk about kind of how to develop a grief-informed practice. And right now we're not going to go into here, make sure that you get trained, okay? Because we're surviving siblings, does not mean that that qualifies us as
Mhm.
grief therapists. And so
Mhm.
make sure that you get good trainings. And I know I give trainings. I think you do grief trainings, but there's so many that
Mhm.
I've taken that I like being able to take a whole lot of different ones so that I can get different perspectives. But we are going to talk about kind of how do you clarify even just your niche. And last week we were talking about this, but I was the only one that was on screen, and so so
Okay.
we've mastered that this week.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'll go back of clarifying our niche of that. You know, there are so many specializations within the field of grief. Um, and so you want to talk about a little bit about how you focus on, I know that you started with sibling loss, but you work with a lot of
Mhm.
different types of grief.
Yes, yes. So I started right where I know, right?
Yeah.
With sibling loss. And when I worked for the police department, what they really helped me formulate what it is I wanted to do. And what I did not see, there's a big gap in traumatic loss, traumatic grief,
Mhm.
such as me working with victims of crime and witnesses to crime.
Mhm.
And that was the civilian side. And at my time there was a civilian employee that passed away suddenly
Mhm.
through a suicide, and it was investigated for actually homicide for a
Oh,
while. In just watching employees on the job going through this loss, you permeate the energy, it permeated
mhm.
throughout the hallways with both civilian and sworn.
Yeah.
And you know that sworn employees go through every kind of grief and they just
Absolutely.
keep going, right? They keep going. Nobody has a conversation about it. So I saw so many different levels just in one job between young people and grief, which I concur with being in grief as a young person. So I
Mhm.
started researching childhood bereavement, the estimate model.
Oh,
I'm in the state of Tennessee. We are 1 in 7
mhm.
children who are bereaved before they turn 18.
Mhm.
So they have lost a parent or a guardian, which puts them at risk for mental health disorders, for substance use and abuse, substance for suicide, as well as early death,
Yeah.
and homelessness. So I started doing research around childhood bereavement there, and then um, because of seeing employees in Sworn going through this grief and then also having grief manifesting in their bodies
Mhm.
early, people dying at work, having heart attacks at work,
Yeah.
um, or having these accidents at work,
Mhm.
or relationship issues at work due to
Mhm.
grief.
Mhm.
Over time, I started to really dive deep into what's it like for all of these systems, right? These systems, young people, workplaces,
Mhm.
um, how do they operate with grief? What are the trainings
Yeah.
that are missing, which is missing? It's
There's a
missing.
lot missing. Right.
Yes. And then how you are intervening in grief with a
You meet
child
that need. Mhm. Yeah.
mm, is different than how you intervene with grief as a police officer who's a man that's 53 years old. Like there's so many different ways and interventions, and you have to be knowledgeable through, the rapport, and just know by brain development period in life, the
Mhm.
interventions are different. It's
Mhm.
just different. So even though that was a lot to say for a niche, but for childhood
It makes
bereavement,
so much
dealing
sense.
with
Mhm.
traumatic grief, and then systems is a big one for me
Mhm.
uh, with the trainings that we have, because it's very few and far between people are talking about grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely. And uh, my perspective is that, every single person that comes to see us as clinicians, there is always, always, always a significant loss uh,
Mhm.
that has not been um, addressed. That hasn't,
Yes.
that fuels whatever diagnosis the person has.
Mhm. Mhm.
Depression, anxiety, even psychosis.
Yeah.
Um, is that there is often a loss that has not been that they have not made peace with, I'll say, and that fuels that and exacerbates other conditions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Most.
So so how do you get the word out about your center?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because
Okay.
when you're dealing with grief, you're not just talking to like a casual buyer, right?
Mhm.
You have to be very intentional about who to approach, who's a prospective client.
Mhm.
Um, so prospecting, because one of the things that I knew when I started the grief center, coming from solo practitioner
Mhm.
to group practice, I started out doing a lot of small speaking engagements in churches.
Yeah, that
Uh,
really helps actually.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And from there, my very first sets of clients came from a certain church. And
Mhm.
as I was invited to come up to have a conversation about grief,
Mhm.
grief and spirituality and mental health.
Mhm.
And after church, people were able to come in a confidential room
Mhm.
and meet with me
Mhm.
and for a couple of minutes to see if they'll feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And that's how I got my first few clients when I started private practice.
Ah, see,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I up the street is a couple of schools, and so the middle school and the high school locally had asked if if I could come up and speak to. There
Mm,
had been a very significant loss, significant death in a student's life, and they had asked, how to be able to help the parents support their kids. And so I had gone up and done a lecture up there. And then actually, I remember months later, somebody walked into my office from the school, a parent who said, "Oh, you're that grief lady
Mm,
that lecture." And I'd really, that was really, really helpful. And I was able to support my kid when she
mm,
didn't make the basketball team,
yeah.
which we wouldn't think of as, quote, a grief experience, but that it's like, yeah, and that's a disappointment. And that she
Mm,
didn't go fall into, well, it's better that you didn't do that. And so that was like one piece. And actually from that training, from that talk, I had also ended up inviting
mhm,
local school counselors from the middle school, from the high school,
mm,
from this area and from the town next door, next to us, to come in. And I offered it for free for school counselors, of just being able to give them some more information about how
yeah.
to support their students, how to recognize grief and how to support them. And so that helped get the word out
Mhm,
as well. Yeah,
mhm.
so those are just a couple of suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and just being open to doing some things when you're first starting out, and even as a refresher, doing some things for low cost or free,
Yeah,
because the benefit of it is, people learning about you and then seeing that you exist,
yeah,
uh, and you having resources or materials to be able to provide for people when they leave so they can remember.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I was just thinking of something else, but it just flew right out of my little
Mhm.
noggin.
Mhm.
um, I love doing this work. That's what I was going to say. I was at a networking event. This is true story. Years and years and years ago, and I had said the name of our center, which was Calabasas Counseling and Grief Center, and this other therapist said, "Oh, you should probably change that name and not have grief in it because you're going to scare people. In fact, I know somebody who came to your center and they didn't like that. They didn't like that there was grief in there." And I thought, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you. At that point, I was like, we have a waiting list and people need this. Okay. And I mean, that was 25, 30 years ago.
Mm.
Um, and I have to say, I'm so excited when I see more and more therapists really, really
Mm.
speaking to uh, um, being able to treat grief, being able to, walk beside clients and recognize all the different types of losses. So I think that it helps. We have a lot of different articles and resources on our websites. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
helps educate the community.
Yeah, it's important. It's work that, again, it's not a conversation that everybody wants to have, but it's going to be necessary.
Yeah,
So far, what we're used to is, the population wanting to have this information after something has happened,
yeah,
right? And it's a crisis situation after it happens,
yeah,
which is fine. But having that information when there's not a crisis works as well.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
we've done. I was looking at the articles that I created for a gathering that we did. It was a mass shooting, and it was local. It was sometime last year, and so myself and another colleague of mine in trauma, Noreen Vanderhoeven, as well as Sharon Volner over in La Ventana, that we all got together and did an evening of being able to support the community. Uh,
mhm,
and that I had done an article on shattered assumptions and why this feels so shocking, and secondary losses after mass violence, as well
mhm,
as
mhm,
another one about again about assumptive world, and that there were the people that were there were like, oh, they like to be able to have something in their hand to be able to bring with them, or be able to have a link on their phone, uh,
mhm,
just be able to give more information. Yeah,
mhm,
yeah, so
mhm,
that people don't feel so crazy.
Yeah.
Grievers feel like there must be something wrong with them because everybody else seems to be okay, and they keep getting told, "You're so strong, and
Mhm.
time makes it all better." And
Right.
those are not true often.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always good to hear, well, not always good, but for you to be able to absorb people's stories and how grief has manifested in their life, especially the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And, I did a grief share before I became a fully grief, therapist. I did a grief share at my church with my dad, and one of the things that we learned in that grief share, which is layman people, you don't have to be a
Mhm.
therapist in there or a facilitator, which is great too, but, for the spiritual folks, but it talks about not making any decisions
Mhm.
within that first 6 months
Mhm.
and first 6 months to a year, because in those 6 months, you're just not steady enough to realize what it is exactly happening. So widows or widowers or anyone who's sharing a home may think that, let me just move real quick. Let me just sell the house and move. And then in the next year, they realize they made a mistake and they want their house back.
Mhm.
So it's information, like especially when you when you go inside libraries and you are giving information to that population that loves to go to the library, or
Mhm.
populations like senior activities or anything
Mhm.
like that, where people may be freshly widowed or anything like that, or even a parent
Mhm.
freshly lost their parent, but having that information readily available because it
Mhm.
can also be taken advantage of during that time. So, it is not just, "Oh, come see me in therapy," but you may also save people from financial ruin.
Right. Right. Which I
Mhm.
think is realistic for many people. And I also think about, it doesn't mean that in a year, all of a sudden, magically, you're going to think better.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
is that there are a lot of things that we can do to be able to help people get more clarity. And sometimes they have to make really, huge decisions. They
Mhm.
don't have the luxury of being able to wait. But it really is that, here cognitively, grief is going to impair you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've had it up in the Facebook group. I have a whole color wheel of all the
Right.
different ways that grief shows up.
Mhm.
And actually, I will say right now, I had created that list quite a while ago, and the woman who's my assistant, who's just a whiz, said, "Here, let me make that into a wheel." I was like, "I love that idea."
I love that.
Anyway, so just being able to share those handouts and information. Um,
Mhm.
I will say we really love, there's more, I'm hearing more and more from people of not only um, is there a grief group, but also is there a grief group in person? And I think that is a need that
Mhm.
is coming out more and more
Mhm.
um, recently over the
Mhm.
last actually, I think over the last year, people are going, yeah, I'm sick and tired of being online. Is there something, is there something in the community? I know I started off by doing grief groups, and frankly, that was how I built my practice. Was that people call and say, "Yeah, I'm not available at that time," or I don't have the bandwidth to come in for a group. Uh, can you see me individually?" And so we primarily, myself, my husband, and our grief team, see people individually and in families. And coincidentally, down the street is a grief center that does nothing but groups, which is great.
Mhm.
Go,
Mhm.
go over to, there's two organizations that do. And so, but it really helped getting the word out of doing groups.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we can say it's not oversaturated. we can
No,
say
uh,
this is a topic that is not oversaturated.
no, no. I've even had therapists just say, I think I'm going to specialize in grief. Uh, um, but I'm not sure because you specialize in that and you're local. I'm like, please, more
Yeah.
people take more classes, more,
Mhm.
information and gathering
Mhm.
trainings on grief because there's never, ever, ever enough
Mhm.
people that really, really, it is such a specialized um,
Mhm.
field.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that I really, honestly, I always think it should be mandatory, just like legal ethical courses every 2 years. And here in California for our license, there should
Mhm.
be a grief course that's mandatory. But,
Mhm.
but
Totally agree.
that has,
Totally agree,
so,
especially after the pandemic.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so anything else? I know we've been on for almost a half an hour. And so,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
we'll kind of wrap up a little bit. Any other advice?
Yeah.
That we'll be coming back from time to time to be talking about, how to get the word out. What
Mhm.
word?
And social media is always a helper. Like how me and Debbie met was through social
Yeah,
media. Um,
exactly.
so social media helps. LinkedIn helps a lot, and then your
See, that's
website.
really interesting because I have a profile on LinkedIn and I never ever use it. I'm really, really
Oh
bad at
man, I am
that.
so active.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
I am super active on there.
Mhm.
I have met a lot of good people
Mhm.
online. I just did a training with Delaware Valley
Mhm.
uh, Adoption Council yesterday. Had about 40 professionals on there talking about ambiguous grief
Mhm.
or loss in the child welfare system, and that all was stemmed from social
Mhm.
media.
That's
So
great.
met some people
Yeah.
off on social media, and they were seeking someone to do a training in child welfare,
Mhm.
and said, "Hey, I'm
Good.
over here,"
Yeah.
and so that would be a continuous relationship, right? Even though it's not in my area, Tennessee, but it's a relationship in that whatever the frameworks that we talk about
Yeah.
can spread throughout that region, and then continuous trainings. And sometimes be aware that there will be times where you'll get out of town. If you are a trainer as well as a
Mhm.
clinician,
Mhm.
um, you will get more inquiries from people out of town. That I have gotten that a lot. Out of town, they want
Yes.
to know they want, and then your hometown will be
Yeah.
last.
Yeah. Yes. Actually,
Mhm,
I get
mhm,
referral
mhm,
requests from literally all over the country, all over the
mhm,
world. I had
mhm.
somebody just requested from Acapulco the other day. And so I love, that's why we did the map on Facebook, in the Facebook group is that here, let's see if there's somebody in the area. Uh,
Mhm,
so, yeah,
mhm. Yeah, 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 and
we
I
can,
love that too about collaborators, that we're not in competition with each other, we're collaborators.
exactly, exactly. Okay. So what are you going to be doing next? When's your
What
next podcast?
podcast has been on vacation for a couple of
Mhm.
months. We'll get
Mhm.
back in the summer. I changed
Good.
the name from Surviving Sibling Loss to
Mhm.
The Grip Spot,
Yep.
and The Grip Spot is, GRIP stands for Grieve in Peace, for all of us who are survivors.
Mhm.
Uh, there is no, anything that we say to survivors, so my premise is, or vernacular is, grieve in peace while picking up the pieces. So we'll start back
Love
up. And thank you.
that.
We'll start back up. I'm trying to get an aim for a April-May date.
Mhm.
Um, April is the month of my brother's death anniversary, and it'll be 29 years. And I just can't believe how time just goes by so fast,
Isn't that
but at
crazy?
the same time goes slow.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's when it'll debut again. I'm on YouTube at thegripspot.com or the grip spot.
Mhm.
And I do have thegripspot.com. Next Thursday, I will be training for Mental Health of America Mid South.
Mhm.
Uh, talking about countertransference and grief
Mhm.
for our clinicians. So that'll be the webinar next
Right.
Thursday for lunchtime. So yeah, that's what's coming up next. Lots of presentations and
Excellent.
all of that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
good. I'm going to be in 2 weeks. I'm going to be presenting at the ADEC conference, Association for Deaf Education and Counseling,
Yeah.
in Baltimore, and I'm really excited. Jill Harrington and Pam Malone and I are going to be presenting on Lucifer, on the Netflix series Lucifer and Family Estrangement. And so I'm really excited about that.
Ooh, I saw that.
Next book on superhero grief, The Multiverse of Loss, is coming out next year. I've got 2 chapters of that. And I just signed, I'm so excited, just signed a book contract with Routledge to write my book, which will be out. I'm giving myself a good year to write that. And so that's going to be on Healing Letters, a structured, trauma-informed approach to addressing grief and addressing unfinished business and grief. It's quite the mouthful.
Oh my goodness.
I'm really excited about that. So,
I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm not worthy.
Oh, please. This is very crazy to me. So
yeah, I love
it. So I love being a grief nerd with you.
Nerd out. Let's nerd out.
Yeah. All right. So I send you a very big hug to you, and I thank everybody who is on listening to us, and encourage you to really, fold grief awareness into your own practice.
Yeah.
And we'll be back to do a few more, of these. Okay. All right.
Bye.